Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Partner Spotlight. With me this week, we'll be covering security with my colleague Gennaro. This will be the last in the security series. The next spotlight will be focusing on Azure Marketplace, which we'll go through later on. This will be the last in our current security series, and which will be covering how to leverage Microsoft and the security elements within that, and how to leverage checkpoints to, I guess, provide a better security service, security posture for your customers. The classic housekeeping slides that we'll go through, the usual, please keep yourself on mute, write any questions in the chat. We'll go through the Q&A at the end should we have time. If we don't have time, we'll reach out to you after the webinar. So please just ask as many questions as you can, try and get through as many of them as possible. And if not, we'll reach out to you afterwards. Without further ado, I'll pass on to my colleague Gennaro to run through the agenda and to go through the main content for today.
Perfect. Thank you, Nathan, and good morning, everyone. So by way of a very quick introduction, Gennaro Migliaccio, I'm the Head of Solutions Development here at Bytes. What that basically means is I get to wear many hats across the business. So I do a little bit of cybersecurity pre-sales, a little bit of delivery. I sit in with our managed services team. So kind of get involved in a little bit of everything. Still remain customer focused. So attend a lot of customer meetings from a pre-sales capacity. In terms of today, here to talk around two very big vendors, Microsoft and Checkpoint. And in terms of an agenda for today, it's of course going to set the scene as to why these two vendors. And also go through, what our objective ultimately is, why we are all on this on this webinar today, and then we'll go through, the main meat of the content, which is around Microsoft Sentinel, really big and hot topic at the moment, as well as actually going through Checkpoint, their portfolio, and how that overlays and works very nicely with Microsoft. And I suppose covering that off is actually looking at the synergies between Checkpoint and Microsoft from both a technical but also a commercial perspective. I know I haven't put it on the agenda. Final couple of things towards the end is how Bytes can of course help. There's a lot of things that we do. Wanted to call out a couple of things in particular, and of course if we've got time, we'll definitely use that for Q&A. I suppose on the topic of time, as you know, this is a half an hour session, and we're taking two of the most popular security vendors and trying to get them into a half an hour session. Is not possible. This is going to be some of the major highlights, but the one thing that I will say is if you do want to know more, please reach out to us. Please pop a question in the chat. We can always organize a one-to-one session further on down the line, because these are big topics, right? There's a lot of individuals, including myself, that can speak on these topics for hours if you give us the chance. So I know half an hour is a very short time. We have condensed it, but hopefully this will give you the highlights, as it were, to these areas. Anyway, jumping straight in. So why Checkpoint and Microsoft? I don't want anyone thinking that we've just randomly plucked two very big vendors, although sometimes it does seem that way. At Bytes, we work with both Checkpoint and Microsoft very closely. We've definitely invested a lot of time, effort, resources, and money in building up our Checkpoint and Microsoft capability, not just from a sales, licensing, and commercial perspective, but also from a technical delivery and support perspective. There's a lot that we do at Bytes, when it comes to Checkpoint and Microsoft, but also these two vendors themselves, they are very big hot topics. They are very big vendors. They have a very, a wide portfolio of services. We all know Microsoft, and how broad, they reach in terms of productivity, operating systems, and security. And of course, Checkpoint, has been broadening their portfolio for the past couple of years. I know a lot of people will probably think, oh, Checkpoint, aren't they just a firewall vendor? Well, they do so much more, and it is definitely one of those misconceptions that even I've fallen foul of. But these two vendors, they have some very good synergies together, especially when it comes to M365 and migration projects into Azure, but also just overall increasing security for our customers. And ultimately, what is our objective? Well, in terms of today, I want everyone coming away with a little bit more knowledge on, on Sentinel, on Lighthouse, on Checkpoint, how these work together, but also where are all the other opportunities from this? I know it's always very easy to see the opportunity as just the licensing or consumption piece, but there is so much more that can be wrapped around, these vendors, and it's exactly what we're working towards and doing at Bytes, to maximize what we can do with our customers. So jumping straight in, big topic. Microsoft Sentinel comes up more often than not. It definitely has done in the last year. For those of you that don't know what Microsoft Sentinel is, this is Microsoft's cloud-native SIEM solution. And when I say SIEM, SIEM, Security Information and Event Management, long story short, we're taking loads of logs, bundling them into one place, and putting that analytical and an intelligence layer on top of that to work out, if there is any suspicious activity happening, but also giving us the ability to investigate that suspicious behavior. Now, why would we need something like a SIEM, or why would our customers need something like a SIEM solution? I think the biggest problem is, and this is of course happened over the past couple of years, and it's definitely not slowing down, is our digital footprint is expanding. It's expanding in every single area. There is, loads of more systems that are cloud-based. We've got IoT, we've got OT environments. Everyone's using a mobile device. Everyone's working from home. Everyone's using a front-face website for commerce. There's loads of different things, and this is always expanding. And I think the only one thing that I haven't put in there today is AI. Although then again, that will probably just end up opening a can of worms. But with all of with this digital estate getting so big, it gives us those challenges and complexities in terms of understanding where that suspicious behavior is, and that's where a lot of the security operation challenges actually tend to come around. There is an increased sophistication of threats. There are a lot more exploits and vulnerabilities that we've seen out there, in the wild. And when we look at a lot of businesses, we don't just have one or two security solutions. We actually have quite a couple of security solutions that are most of the time fairly disconnected. We need to understand all of the intelligence from all of these security tools to make a better decision and increase our response capability. And I think overall that's what we want to get to, and that's exactly why we look at SIEM solutions, is to increase our response capability of an organization. It's understanding everything that's happening within our environment, is obtaining all of the log sources, all of those data points, and being able to run, analytical rules over these in order to identify, suspicious activities that have occurred. So that's of course, a couple of the challenges. I suppose that then draws us back to, why use a SIEM? Why would you use something like Sentinel? And again, it's to give us that centralization and the ability to spot patterns and suspicious activities and hunt for threats within our environment. But also for our security chaps, it gives them a central point, a central interface for our security teams to actually, investigate and respond to these threats. So instead of having to log on to my AV product and my email product and then, look at the endpoint, I can do this all from one interface and make a decision of, is this security threat an actual threat? Is this something that can damage my organization, or is it a false positive? Do I need to start invoking my incident response plan? And I suppose where Sentinel comes in, if my slides will go to next. My slides have frozen for whatever reason. Hold on. Let me see if I can push this another way. Hopefully that's coming up now. They're introducing Microsoft Azure Sentinel. So where Sentinel comes into this, as mentioned before, this is Microsoft's cloud-native SIEM solution. It's born in the cloud. It lives within Microsoft Azure, and therefore it comes with all the bells and whistles of scalability, flexibility, and all of that good stuff. because it's part of the Microsoft ecosystem, it also allows us to bring in our M365 alerts and Azure alerts for free. So it's a very good, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a very good jump and transition in if you're, if you and your customers use Microsoft already, and it integrates with those existing tools that you already have. As we would expect with, with a SIEM solution, it does the four main points. It collects data, collects into numerous data sources, not just Microsoft data sources. It can connect into, there's a lot of out-of-the-box, vendors that we can connect into. Failing that, we can always connect into things like, syslog, ceph, lef, and all of that good stuff. Once we've got that data, we can then start using analytical rules to detect any suspicious activity. Once that suspicious activity has been detected, we've then got that interface to start investigating those security incidents. And, once we start investigating and we understand, what this security incident is, we can then respond to that. And that's normally in the form of playbooks, automation, SOAR, all of that good stuff. So Sentinel provides us this, and it provides us a very good platform, to monitor our security and increase our response capability. So hopefully that serves as a very quick highlight and an overview of Sentinel. As mentioned, talk about this for hours. I can bring up my portal and demo it all day long, but hopefully this gives the base understanding of what Sentinel is, what challenge we're trying to solve, and what challenges we are seeing. Moving on, Lighthouse. Also a big thing, especially with numerous people that have tuned into to this webinar. So Lighthouse, it isn't specific to Sentinel, but it does have an interaction to Sentinel, which hopefully I'll explain better in a little bit. But Lighthouse is a management layer for Azure. It's built for MSPs that allows MSPs to manage their customers as Azure tenants. And I suppose the key benefits around this is the automation and scalability. The more customers we take on board means if we didn't have something like Lighthouse set up, we would have to log into every single Azure portal manually, do our changes, do our configs, do our updates, all of that good stuff, and rinse and repeat that. And even using things like infrastructure as code and scripting, there's always going to be that chance that things are going to be missed or things are not going to be deployed. So because of that, using something like Lighthouse, using that management capability gives us greater visibility, greater security, and greater governance over those tenancies that we're managing. Now, you've probably all seen, RBAC within Azure. It's definitely quite complex. You'll be happy to know that RBAC within Lighthouse is no different. You can also implement things. Accounts and permissions with just enough and just in time access. So it allows you to be very granular. Even though you're managing your customers' tenancies, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have owner level access to everything. Your customers can. You and your customer can define the roles and permissions that you need, so you only have enough to do what you need to. And I suppose I've probably touched on 3/4 of this already. But as mentioned, when using Lighthouse, it allows us to manage multiple tenancies quite easily. In the context of Sentinel, this allows us to consolidate a lot of the alerts to our top level, let's call it SIEM or SOC. So instead of having to manage, say, 10 different customers' Sentinel instances, you would manage one Sentinel instance that's being fed with a lot of customer data. When that alert is generated, then you can start jumping in to the relevant customer tenant. So again, you're not managing 10 different things. If you have 10 different customers, it's all centralized, and it allows your security operations team a lot easier to of course manage. Hopefully that makes sense on Lighthouse. in terms of, I suppose I've already covered this with a lot of hand gestures and me waving my hands. But as mentioned, when it comes to Lighthouse, this is the management of those Azure tenancies. What we can do is as the MSP, we can connect into our customer tenancies. There's various different ways of doing this. So we can use Cloud Shell and an API, or if you've built a marketplace offering, this can actually be baked into the marketplace offering itself. We would sit as that service provider. We'll do a lot of the global config, and then we can actually start pushing these to the different customer tenancies and the different customer subscriptions. We can then, log into those subscriptions individually if we need to do any particular configuration. But it allows us, that centralized management. I don't want to over-reg it on Lighthouse. The concept of it is fairly simple. Managing a lot of different tenants and subscriptions. In the context of Sentinel, this is how you would create an all-up SIEM SOC function. Instead of having to manage multiple SIEM solutions, you're basically ingesting everything into the top level, and that's where your analysts would sit if you were to say provide an MSSP type offering. So when we look at Sentinel, there's of course, quite a bit to Sentinel being a SIEM solution, quite a lot to Sentinel as well, given the fact that it's within the Microsoft ecosystem. Where is the opportunity? And I suppose at Bytes, the way that I've kind of pictured this in my head, I know it's probably a little bit rudimentary. This is probably a cross between opportunity and capability, but where I really see the opportunity is not so much on the consumption part. Of course, consumption is always going to, pay the bills to a certain degree. But there is a lot more that we can be doing around Sentinel in terms of implementation services, given the fact that it is a very complex solution. And that's not just hooking in the data sources. That's making sure that we've got the correct analytical rules, that we've got the correct automation, playbooks, runbooks, all of that good stuff. But also migration services. There are customers out there that are probably using legacy, SIEM solutions and legacy log collectors. How do we start amalgamating that into Sentinel? So there's, of course, a very big opportunity around implementation services. Seeing as Sentinel has been out for, I want to say about 2.5 years now. I can't believe it's gone that quick. There's, of course, opportunities for things like health checks and all that good stuff. The real opportunity that we see is around managed Sentinel. Sentinel is a very good solution. It pulls all of those logs. It does, a good bit of automation. It does a good bit of analytics. However, we need someone managing it. We need someone still looking at the console and still responding to those security incidents as they come in. And a lot of our customers, they're not going to be able to afford staff to do a 24/7 SOC type service. So because of that, managed Sentinel is a conversation that comes up more often than not. It's almost, customer is investigating Sentinel, they switch Sentinel on and use it, and then they kind of realize, who's going to be managing this all the time? And do I only want this managed 9 to 5, when a security incident can happen anytime? So managed Sentinel, absolutely a big thing. The last two that I'll land on, pen testing and red teaming. You can basically apply this to anything. We've put a security solution in. How do we actually know that it's working? Well, let's pen test it. Let's poke it with a stick and see what happens. And likewise, incident response. Not every single, customer and partner that we work with is going to be equipped to deal with, incidents as they occur. So when we look at Sentinel, it's not just about implementing the tooling. It's almost looking, end to end on that incident response lifecycle. Right, it's about being able to correctly. It's about adequately being able to detect those incidents by using Sentinel. By way, we need implementation services of some sort, validating that it works by things like pen testing, overall management from managed Sentinel, and incident response when things get very fickle. So there is a lot of opportunity around Sentinel. It's not just about, the solution itself. Everything that formulates around it, forms an opportunity. I think I may have done that one to death a little bit, but hopefully I've got the point across. So let's move into a little bit of Checkpoint. Now, Checkpoint, as I mentioned towards the beginning, and I know there's one or two Checkpoint reps that are dialed in. They're probably going to shoot me afterwards for this. I originally thought that Checkpoint only did firewalls. I was grossly mistaken and probably hammered down a little bit when they heard that. But they of course educated me in the right way. Checkpoint is very broad, and they are constantly broadening out their portfolio. And I suppose their portfolio on a slide would look something like this. And starting on the bottom left, where it comes to secure the network with their quantum tools, this is around their firewalling. This is their bread and butter. Their firewalls can fit into a multitude of environments, anything from small, medium businesses all the way up to enterprises and, grossly massive data centers. Checkpoint are capable of doing. They do a lot around securing the network, and that can also, secure networks into things like Azure, whereas, one of the definite opportunity areas that we see. However, this isn't, as I mentioned, only what Checkpoint do. They have also ventured into, securing the cloud. This first started off with posture management, so understanding, the configuration of things like AWS, Azure, and GCP, and ensuring that this is aligned to best practice. And this was then further expanded out to provide protection around, web and API. Web and API services, which we commonly see, running a lot within, AWS and Azure. And again, that's expanded out a lot more for things like container protection, runtime protection, CI/CD scanning, and all of that good stuff. So when it comes to actually securing our resources that are deployed in Azure and AWS, making sure that they're configured to a good practice and making sure that none of these services can be taken advantage of, Checkpoint definitely helps on this. Moving on to the further right, though, securing users and access. Always a big thing, securing the users. Identity and endpoint still, a very major area that can be thrown around. And Checkpoint definitely, jumped into the deep end with this, with their Harmony stack. So their Harmony stack is, as you can see, it is a blend of everything to do with the user, broken up into three key areas, which is, remote access, email and collaboration, and of course endpoint, with the inclusion of mobiles. Now, this is the part that synergizes quite well with M365. Now, whilst there is crossover, if you look at M365 E5, we all know that not every single customer has M365 E5, right? What about those customers using M365 E3? This ties in very nicely with them because it allows us to deliver upon, endpoint protection, network protection, web protection, and of course, email protection, which are, the big three things that we definitely need to be doing. Even if customers have an M365 E5, sometimes it's good to, to double layer some of these, especially on the email side. Email filtration, email is going to be always going to be a big attack vector, so we want to make sure that we double down with that security. And finally, the part that Checkpoint has also put in that stack is around connectivity. They have definitely acknowledged that remote working is not going anywhere. So how do we best secure that? And this, starts leaning into the areas of SASE, ZCNA, and cloud-based secure web gateways. To provide our users protection regardless of where they are or where they're connecting it from. And I suppose all of this is umbrellaed or underpinned by their Infinity portal, using their threat cloud. So this is under the Horizon piece, and this is really what starts to make all of these solutions start working together by really providing a strong XDR service across all of these. And bearing in mind, all of this can be ingested into Sentinel if we need it to. So again, it's the start of that synergy piece. And I suppose to summarize this slide, if I just go to next, when we look at these different products, it's around protecting different zones and different areas of our estate. Cloud is definitely not going anywhere. A lot of our customers use the cloud, to some degree. So we definitely want to protect the cloud. Likewise, we've still got a lot of customers that have, data centers, servers in a storeroom, all of that good stuff. So we still need to have that perimeter network. We all have users. They make up our business, so we're going to protect the users. And of course, we want to manage everything, within that stack. So when I look at Checkpoint and Checkpoint Stack, it fits very neatly in with each other, but it also, again, synergizes quite nicely with, customers that are consuming things like M365, E3, and E5. Realize I'm running a little bit behind, so I'm probably going to have to speed up on the next couple of slides. So in terms of Checkpoint, there is a lot of capability that we have within Bytes. We have delivery capability. We can of course perform health checks. We can do a lot of commercial advisory around Checkpoint, but we also provide Checkpoint support, and we normally call this SPARC for our Checkpoint support. Now, the one thing why I would call out our SPARC service is because this is direct to engineer support. So when you or your customer calls up, you're not going to first line, then second line, then third line. It's direct to third line. You're straight away on the phone with an engineer. They can begin troubleshooting. What this tends to result in is faster resolution, but also an improved customer experience. No one, and I'm going to make a big assumption here, no one on this on this webinar likes being in a queue for support, right? Of course, there's always going to be wait times on everything, yes, but the worst thing is being placed on hold for 2 hours only to talk to someone that just wants to gather basic information. And I get it, there is a time and a place for things like first line, but when your firewall has gone down and you have no network connectivity, I kind of want to skip past all of that and get my stuff fixed, thanks. And that's exactly the concept that we have built here within Bytes. And again, so I suppose go through a couple of the benefits. There is no first line support. We resolve quite a lot of tickets in-house. I know it says 80% on here. This number, of course, fluctuates. It's always between 75 and 90%. The tickets that are not solved, we work very closely with Checkpoint to resolve. We can authorize RMAs if we need to. So if a device is in fact defunct, we have the ability to authorize that. There is a big service, something that we provide a lot with all of our Checkpoint check contracts. And I suppose the reason why I wanted to go through the SPARC bit, is this not going next again? Apologies for this. Let me just manually push that slide in. Either that or my left click on my mouse is not working today for whatever reason. So I suppose when we look at Checkpoint and where the opportunity is for us, we can of course do everything around demos, POCs, planning and architecture. There is of course the opportunity around the license sale, but where we've really focused on is those implementation services, those support services, those managed services, and of course, those testing type services when it comes to pen testing and incident response. Suffice to say, I don't think I have to touch on each and every one of these, but hopefully that makes sense as to where we see the opportunity and where we have invested our time and effort for that opportunity. Quickly touch on the synergy. I think I've touched a lot of this as I've gone through. There's some very good layering when it comes to M365 and Azure. Checkpoint security, definitely bolsters, what Microsoft has. Sometimes it can actually make it more commercially attractive. Certain services in Azure are fairly costly. Utilizing the Checkpoint portfolio can normally give us, a lot of benefits around there. In terms of the synergy between these two, and also, I suppose, let's call it us three, so synergy between Checkpoint, Microsoft, and Bytes, is we can really provide that end-to-end journey, right? We can do the demos and pre-sales from the beginning. We can do the planning and implementation on both. We do a lot of migration services into Azure, and most of the time we factor in, Checkpoint solutions for the security. We can, of course, do health checks, support services, and managed services for all of these. So how can Bytes better help? The final slide, I promise. Well, final slide from if it comes up. Sorry, left click is there we go. The top 4 things that I'll leave everyone with that we can do around these areas is, of course, we can do our cloud jumpstart. So this is creating a secure network environment within Azure that contains the checkpoint stack. Likewise, if we want to switch gears and look at more of the operational, the security operational side, we do offer Sentinel activation workshops to get customers up and running on Sentinel very quickly. In terms of our SPARC support services, we stand by this so much that we even offer a free SPARC ticket to our customers. So this is, let Bytes prove how good we actually are. Let's put our money where our mouth is. And finally, as I said towards the beginning, there is absolutely nothing wrong and nothing stopping us with doing a one-to-one session with our SMEs. In fact, that's probably the best place to start because there's a lot of information here today. There's a lot of information that I've tried to compact into half an hour, and I'm slowly failing because I'm going over time. But, please do get in contact with us. If there's any areas on here that are of interest that you want to discuss further, let's start with that one-to-one session. Let's start going through, some of these which are applicable. There's a lot of things that we can ultimately do. It's just making sure that we're doing the right thing. As I'm running a little bit behind, probably don't have too much time for Q&A. However, if there are any questions, we can respond to them either after this or during the chat. And for now, I'll pass back over to Nathan to start wrapping us up.
Excellent. Thank you, Gennaro. Such a tough task of getting all of that in such a short space of time. So, really well done. There's a couple of questions. However, based on time, they are very complex questions. So, thank you for everyone attending today and actually focusing on it. So we'll come back to you on them. Just to cover off, our next spotlight is going to cover GDAP, so a little bit on the security side of things and granular delegated admin permissions. We will touch on Lighthouse again because you can use Lighthouse and GDAP permissions as a way to manage customers. We'll also cover the Azure Marketplace and the opportunity that we have for MSPs. And it would be remiss of me not to remind everybody or to enlighten you that July the 25th, we're running our Re-Inspire event a week after Microsoft Inspire. Hopefully we're going to turn the opportunities and translate them from Microsoft language and lingo into English and to help you know what your opportunities are going to be for the next year. But with that, I thank Gennaro again for his time and that incredible task of getting all of that in 30 minutes. And if anyone else, feel free to reach out afterwards. Anyone that's asked questions, we'll reach out to after. Thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.